We're just 2 weeks away from elections and the new government has their task cut out. For that and to discuss the state of the economy, joining me now on ET Now is Dr. Bimal Jalan, the former RBI governor and also the head of the Reserve Panel or the Economic Capital Framework. Dr. Jalan, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. Dr. Jalan, let me first begin by talking about the state of the Indian economy, and of course the big issue that's surrounding the Indian economy at this point of time is the issue of data credibility. This is the second time around that we've seen the NSSO data being questioned. The MCA 21 data now, reports are saying that that data is dodgy. Do you think the government is actually suppressing the economic data?
No, economic data, I don't think we can take that view. You know, I mean, if you don't agree with the data and there are different data, that is possible. And it is possible that somebody in the governmental system, etc., has been influencing data collection. But I think that so far as the national statistics situation is concerned, they are quite autonomous. And if you look at the history, despite many changes in the government from time to time, by and large, their data has been satisfactory in terms of what they have been able to count. And that's the right. issue, main issue, is the sample that you take and try and get into a data. Now, whether the government has influenced that particular part or not, that one can't say.
You know, since you're saying if the government has influenced the data or not, one really cannot say. So does that not mean that there is a case for a statistical audit of the Indian data? There is a need to have an independent agency or independent set of evaluators or economists looking at the quality of the Indian data.
No, but that can be considered without, you know, that doesn't have to depend on the elections. That part can be done if an autonomous body has been set up to see whether there was any fault in the data calculations over the last, say, 5-6 years. And then we can decide whether any methodology has to be changed, because ultimately you can't count 1.3 billion people.
Right.
You know, you can only count a section of the people which are representative of the total data in terms of consumption, in terms of services, in terms of, you know, employment and so on and so forth.
So you would say there is a case for perhaps relook at the data, get independent evaluators. And
yeah, but not by saying that this particular data is wrong and that particular data is wrong. You know, unless there is evidence that it has been crafted. You see, I don't know whether it is possible to establish.
But the fact is that 108 economists had raised a lot of questions about the Indian data. Back and forth we are seeing, you know, whether it was a jobs report or the latest data which says the MCA 21 data is dodgy. I mean, how should one really look at it? And does that mean perhaps a body like NSSO needs legal backing?
No. What I would suggest is that, yes, I mean, you can have a legal backing, making it autonomous,
right, and
so on and so forth. And you can set up after the elections, let a body be set up, which would look into it, which would audit, you know, how the data have been calculated. Certain, you know, 5 or 6%, what you might say, deficit or lack of data, that's a different matter, because that would be estimated.
Right.
But we can try and improve. If there is so much debate, then the best thing is after the election set up a committee or set up an audit committee to see what more needs to be done in terms of either increasing the sample size or increasing the different areas which are more reflective of the total population in terms of activity, in terms of services, manufacturing and all that.
Right. Dr. Jalan, you've given me a headline there. Perhaps there is a need for the government to do that whenever the new government comes into place. Let me also shift focus now to the big issue that's hogging the limelight. A lot of people are concerned about it, and that is the state of the economy. Consumption slowdown is being witnessed not only in the auto sector but also in the FMCG sector. A lot of FMCG companies are really dealing with this. Is that really pointing to a larger slowdown in the economy? Can one say the elephant is slowing down?
No, I mean not in the long term. You see, you have to view this as one short term, because we are having elections, there is uncertainty, or people are waiting to see the outcome of elections, where we have what kind of a government we have and so on and so forth. That's one point, and you wait. So investors are waiting, they would be slow, and similarly those who are consuming, they would be waiting for food prices have been increased, for food prices have risen, but agriculture is not very good. In services also, in the unorganized sector, people would be doing work, but they would wait and see what kind of election results are there. So at the moment, I would not put too much weight on this. But the task of new government which comes into power is precisely this, to make sure that our growth picks up, that our unemployment reduces, that our agricultural areas receive the kind of funds that they require for fertilizers and other things. Because in terms of fundamentals, there is no other country than India and perhaps China which have all these strengths. We have technology, we have capital in terms of total investment, we have savings, we have labor, and we have land. So all the factors of production are in our favor. And there is no reason why we can't reach 8% rate of growth, which we did during 2004 to 2010.
But Dr. Jalan, let me play the devil's advocate here. What are the fiscal tools that are available with us? Look at the way the revenue stream is. That is pretty weak. The government is borrowing, a lot more in FY20. What are the fiscal tools that are available for the government to push growth, if you are saying that is going to be one big task in front of the new government?
No, but there are interrelationships. But if consumption is decreasing, then your total amount of GST that you would be earning may increase. But it will be less than what it could be if consumption was increasing. Similarly, if employment was increasing. So this is part of that part. That is, and if you look at the fiscal deficit, earlier fiscal deficits were higher, they came down to 3.4% last year. This year they are supposed to be more. Part of this may be due to all the things that you have said about slowdown in the economy and so on and so forth. So tax receipts is higher, but there may be difference between expenditure and revenues, partly because of the election expenditure or partly because of investments that you are doing all over the country, and but may not be implementation may be slow, but the investment rate is probably increasing, but it's not producing outputs as of now.
Dr. Jalan, do you believe the new government could perhaps look at a fiscal stimulus? Is that one of the things that could be needed to push growth? Or because this is of course going to come at the risk of once again a ballooned fiscal deficit? No,
but I think that my view on that fiscal deficit part is very different from what the normal view is among many economists also, and so on and so forth. That if you look at the fiscal deficit, the reason why you want lower fiscal deficit are two. One is essentially inflation. That if you have large deficit, then the money multiplier, so-called money multiplier, would be large, and you would have money supply which would increase at a much faster rate than output. So you will have much higher inflation. So if you don't have, say, an inflation problem, then you can have a fiscal deficit which is higher. So second part is what do you do with that fiscal deficit? Now, if you are doing that fiscal deficit part in order to do things in times of election, to provide more money, for example, to people which are free, or loan waivers or other things, then you would have a lot of what you might say disjuncture between what actually poor get and what you are providing, spending, as has been the case with many of our schemes. When we say that we are providing support in the for ration cards or for the shops for food, I mean the data show that 40% is diverted.